You're on a plane when suddenly, boom, a loud explosion. The cabin shakes, alarms blare, and the aircraft tilts sharply before it starts to drop. Passengers scream, but you try to remember the safety rules for an airplane crash. Put on your life jacket, but don't inflate it until you're outside the plane. But what if the plane itself had a life jacket? I'm talking about something that inflates in seconds right before impact. Kind of like a giant airbag for airplanes, only this one wraps around the entire fuselage. When it deploys, the plane basically turns into a big, puffy Michelin Man cocoon. I know it looks kind of funny, but that funny-looking idea could actually save hundreds of lives and change the airline industry for good. Yep, plane crashes could finally become a thing of the past, but only if we're willing to make one huge trade-off. Don't worry, I'll get to that. In June 2025, Air India Flight 171 took off from Ahmedabad, India, heading to London. But just seconds after takeoff, it crashed straight into a nearby medical building. It was heartbreaking. All 12 crew members and 229 passengers lost their lives that day. Incredibly, one man, 40-year-old Vishwas Ramesh from the UK, survived. He'd been sitting in seat 11A, right next to an emergency exit. According to preliminary investigations, both switches controlling the plane's fuel supply were shut off just seconds after liftoff. Without fuel, the engine simply didn't have enough power to keep climbing. Now, imagine the fear the pilots and passengers must have felt, realizing there was no way out. This tragic event stuck in the minds of two engineers from the Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences in Dubai, Eshal Wasim and Darsan Srinivasan. They couldn't stop thinking about it, or about all the lives lost. So, they decided they had to do something. One question kept running through their minds. Why isn't there a system that helps people survive after a plane failure? Because the truth is, most airplane safety technologies are designed to prevent crashes, but very few help you survive one. And that's where their idea took off. They wanted to create something different, something that could truly shape the future of aviation. So they dove into hours and hours of intense research and development, and came up with a project called Rebirth, which they described as the first AI-powered crash survival system. But the world is already calling it something else. The crash-proof airplane. Sounds awesome, but how does it actually work? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's similar to that good old safety feature we all know from cars, airbags. Only in this case, they don't protect passengers inside the cabin. Instead, these airbags wrap around the outside of the aircraft, triggered by advanced AI detection systems. But actually, the project goes way beyond just an inflatable aircraft design. In total, their system uses 5 smart technologies to help when a crash is inevitable. These features can predict crashes, slow the aircraft, protect passengers, and even guide rescuers to the scene. Time to get into some aviation safety explained. First, there's AI detection. The Rebirth system kicks in the moment a plane leaves the ground. Think of it like having a super intelligent Siri or Alexa on board, but one with a PhD in airplanes that can practically become the pilot if needed. This AI constantly monitors altitude, speed, engine performance, direction, fire sensors, and pilot response. Basically, it's connected to everything happening during the flight. If something feels off, it raises an alert. And if a crash becomes unavoidable below 3,000 feet, the system automatically activates and can even take control of the aircraft. Next up, the airbags. If there's a system failure and a collision becomes inevitable, the AI activates high-speed airbags. In less than 2 seconds, they inflate like a giant piece of popcorn bursting open. The airbags pop out from the front, bottom, and back of the plane. Then they blow up until the whole plane looks like a flying bounce house. This tech is made of layered fabric that absorbs the impact and protects the plane's body. In theory, this protective padding makes sure the landing isn't too rough, no matter how fast the plane's going. Next, we've got something called reverse thrust. It's actually something pilots already do. Reverse thrust happens when a plane's engines push air forward instead of backward, and that helps the plane slow down after landing. But let's say it's a critical situation. The pilot's unconscious and the engines are still running. That's when the rebirth system kicks in and automatically switches the engines into reverse mode to slow the descent. And if the engines are completely out, no worries. That's when gas thrusters kick in. These boosters fire up to reduce the aircraft's speed and stabilize it during the fall, cutting the impact force by up to 20%. Then we've got smart fluids. These are special materials hidden inside the walls and seats. They stay soft and comfy most of the time, but the moment there's an impact, they instantly harden to absorb the shock and protect passengers from getting hurt. And finally, we have the rescue aids phase. After impact, the system shoots out an infrared beacon, GPS coordinates, and flashing lights, plus a bright orange coating, so rescuers can spot the plane and reach survivors fast. For now, it's just a prototype, but a very promising one. Their simulations showed a reduction in impact force of over 60%, and that could truly be life-changing. At this point, they've got the data, the simulations, and the design all ready to go. The next step is to put it through real-world testing, like in wind tunnels and controlled conditions. And even though everyone's pretty excited to see this airplane's safety technology working, there are still some concerns. Remember that major trade-off I mentioned earlier? Well, here it is. Adding airbags to planes would massively increase their weight, because these airbags would have to be huge to actually reduce the impact forces of a commercial aircraft. And if they're that big, then they're gonna be super heavy too, right? There are also some concerns about how effective the AI monitoring system would really be. Experts explain that while AI could sense a plane's proximity to the ground and decide when to deploy safety measures, there are still many real-time variables to consider when making an off-airport landing. And as for those giant airbags, adding them to commercial planes would make the aircraft much heavier, which might not be all that practical. It would require massive innovations in airplane engineering, all to prevent a type of accident that might only happen once in decades. So yeah, not everyone's totally convinced just yet. Because we have to remember, airplane crashes are actually very rare, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Lately, people on social media started coming up with theories that they're becoming more frequent, but that's just not true. Statistics show that there's been a decline in air accidents over the past 2 decades. Experts say you're actually a lot safer flying than you are driving to the airport. The odds of someone passing away during a commercial flight are incredibly low, about 1 in 13.7 million passenger boardings worldwide. What I mean is, air travel is still the safest way to get around. But hey, if we can make it even safer, why not, right? And that's exactly what the Rebirth project is all about. By the way, their idea is so impressive, it became a finalist for the prestigious James Dyson Award, an honor given to inventions that could truly change the world. And even though their idea could be a winner, the team says fame isn't the goal. They see this competition as a chance to push their vision forward, to make air travel safer for everyone, and maybe one day help save lives when everything else fails. So yeah, there are still some challenges, but this new safety tech could truly change the airline industry once and for all. Let me tell you a terrifying story. You're on a flight, 35,000 feet in the air, sipping coffee, listening to music over your earphones, when suddenly, a hunk of metal the size of a baseball rips through the plane like a bullet from space. No warning, no escape. Just a silent demise falling from the sky at 17,000 miles per hour. Sounds like a disaster movie? Perhaps, but it's also a very real scenario, and this should be a wake-up call. Right now, Earth is being surrounded by thousands of pieces of space junk like non-functioning satellites, rocket parts, or orbital shrapnel. Most burn up, some don't, and aviation experts warn. It's only a matter of time before one of them punches a hole in a plane full of passengers. Think the sky is empty once you're above the clouds? Of course not. In fact, it's busier than ever, from both above and below. Every day, around 100,000 flights crisscross the globe. At the same time, thousands of satellites, old rocket stages, and debris fragments are zipping through space just a few hundred miles above your head. We've basically turned low Earth orbit into a junkyard, and commercial planes are flying just beneath it. It's like cruising down the highway while someone dumps metal scraps from a bridge overhead. It might miss you, until it doesn't. So what exactly is all this flying trash? It's called space junk. Basically, all the stuff we once shot into orbit that's now just floating uselessly around up there, drifting, waiting to lose enough speed to come back to Earth. Think non-functioning satellites, spent rocket boosters, metal fragments from past missions, and the occasional wrench or bolt lost during a spacewalk. Right now, researchers say there are over 2,300 rocket bodies still circling our planet, and that's just the big stuff. In total, we're tracking tens of thousands of objects larger than 4 inches, and possibly millions of tiny pieces too small to see, but large enough to cause serious damage. Here's the scary bit. This junk zips around Earth at the speed of 17,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to turn even a paint chip into a flying projectile. A piece the size of a coin could pierce a spacecraft or an airplane like paper. Most junk burns up in a fiery goodbye, but sometimes a stubborn chunk survives the fall. So far, no commercial airplane has been struck by falling space debris. Lucky us, or lucky you. I don't fly that often, but luck doesn't last forever. There have already been plenty of close calls. Large chunks of junk have survived re-entry and crash-landed on Earth, sometimes near homes, farms, or even highways. In one case, a pressurized metal fuel tank from a rocket landed in Texas. In another, a long metal panel dropped into a remote field in Australia. In 2022, the situation became super serious for a few hours. Spain and France temporarily shut down parts of their airspace due to an uncontrolled re-entry of a Chinese rocket. Over 600 flights were delayed because no one could be certain where that chunk of metal might fall. That was the first time in history that air travel was interrupted because of space debris. And if current trends continue, it probably won't be the last. Now, picture that over the US on a holiday weekend. Jam-packed airports, thousands of flights, and suddenly, sorry folks, we might have some heat-resistant screws coming from space. Flights will be resumed soon. The problem is that re-entries can't always be predicted with pinpoint accuracy. Agencies often get just a few hours' notice, and the impact zone could stretch across hundreds of miles. So, aviation officials face a tough choice: close huge chunks of airspace or roll the dice with thousands of passengers in the sky. According to recent research, some of the world's busiest airspaces already face a 26% annual chance of being affected by an uncontrolled re-entry. That's more than 1 in 4. And not because anyone's being reckless, it's just because the numbers are exploding. Over the past decade, the number of objects in low Earth orbit has doubled. And here's the real danger. The more crowded space becomes, the higher the chance that debris collides with more debris, creating even more debris. It's called Kessler syndrome, a kind of orbital domino effect where one collision triggers another, and another, until entire orbits become unusable. And with companies like SpaceX and national space agencies launching more and more stuff into space, we could be setting the stage for exactly that. Meanwhile, back on Earth, we're flying more than ever. Commercial air traffic has more than doubled since 2000. That means more people in the air, more planes in flight paths, and more chances for a tragic overlap between something falling and something flying. And when that moment comes, there may be no warning. And if that moment ever comes, we probably wouldn't even see it. I mean, before it hits the news. Even with all our fancy satellites, spotting a tiny metal thing dropping out of orbit is nearly impossible. But again, most debris doesn't make it to the ground. As these objects plummet through Earth's atmosphere, the intense heat from re-entry usually causes them to burn up completely. That's especially true for smaller or lightweight pieces like aluminum fragments or insulation. Also, even when stuff does survive re-entry, a mid-air collision with a plane is extremely rare. Planes cruise at 35,000 feet, while falling space junk comes screaming down from hundreds of miles up, whizzing past that height in seconds. The chances of a plane being in the exact spot at the exact time are incredibly slim. It's like tossing a dart from space and trying to hit a mosquito flying across a football field, while blindfolded. The timing, the alignment, the odds? Practically zero. But with more darts and more mosquitoes? That's why experts are still worried. The amount of space junk is growing fast. More stuff falling means more chances for something to go wrong. And while the odds of a direct strike remain low, the risk of aerospace disruption is very real. So, can't we just clean it up? You'd think that with all our high-tech satellites, space stations, and reusable rockets, someone would have invented a cosmic vacuum cleaner by now. But space cleanup is way more complicated than it sounds. For one, the junk is moving fast. Snagging this stuff is like trying to catch bullets while being strapped to a rocket yourself. There's also the size problem. Some pieces are too small to track, and others are too big to ignore. Plus, no one can agree whose job it is to clean up the mess. If a country launches a satellite that later breaks apart and becomes debris, is it their job to retrieve it? So far, no one really knows. Okay, when said like that, it sounds impossible even to me, but I have faith in scientists. However, it's not all bad news. The European Space Agency is pushing for a zero-debris policy for future missions. They want every satellite and rocket launched to have a built-in plan for getting out of orbit safely. Meanwhile, scientists are working on robotic grippers, basically giant space claws that could one day grab junk and fling it into a controlled burn in Earth's atmosphere. This goes to show that the problem is understood, and while difficult, the cleanup is not impossible, if we address it in time. The sooner we start taking it seriously, the better the odds that your next flight stays boring and uneventful. You know, the way flights are supposed to be. Unless you sit by the window, then it's breathtaking and awe-inspiring. So the next time you're staring out your airplane window at 35,000 feet, relax. You're more likely to spill your coffee than get hit by space junk, or upgraded to first class by accident. Scientists, engineers, and even robot claws are already on the case. Space might be messy now, but we've cleaned up bigger messes before. And with the right moves, we can keep the skies safe for everyone. And who knows? Maybe in a few decades, you'll be booking a window seat for a flight out into space. Just make sure it comes with asteroid or junk insurance.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like